We are fighting for our civil rights. We are fighting for working class people. We are standing by Clapham. We are standing with protesters in Bristol. We are standing with Black Lives Matter. We are standing with the people of Liverpool who see democracy taken from them. And we are standing for trade unions, collectivism and socialism. Those words, comrades, those words, justice, peace, solidarity, love, collectivism, rights, human rights. Those words exist because people fought for them. People lost their lives for those liberties. They lost their lives for the democracies that we are here today to protect. There is a future. There is a future when our tomorrows are better than our yesterdays. There is a future when we speak for our young and refuse to have them shackled in debt. There is a future when we demand government intervention for a clean society. There is a future built on socialism, and we will win it through our collectivism. We will win it by standing together. My message to you today, comrades, is very clear. Be in a union. Be part of collectivism. Be part of activism. Believe that you can change the world. Demand a change to the world and accept nothing less.
You're on mute, Jennie.
Wasn't that brilliant and inspiring? I love it. I don't think I'm on. I think I'm off mute now. So I just want to welcome everyone to tonight's launch. Tonight's event to launch a campaign to elect Howard Beckett as Unite's next General Secretary. And what an amazing turnout we've had. We've had so many people registering that we had to turn this into a live event, which is absolutely brilliant. So thank you all so much for joining us. Although, to be honest, it's no surprise to me that there's so much interest in the launch, because we've had an incredible response to the campaign since Howard announced that he was standing as a candidate, with thousands already signed up to support his campaign and more joining us every day. So if you're not already signed up to the campaign, then follow the links that we're going to share with you later on and during the event, and jump on board and be part of the campaign. So my name's Jennie Formby, and I'm very proud to have been a member of Unite and its predecessor, the T&G, all my adult life. First as a shop steward and branch secretary, and then I worked for the union for 36 years in every level, from staff member to national officer, political director and regional secretary. So I know our union inside out, and I know only too well just how important this election is. The role of General Secretary is absolutely crucial to how Unite works for our members, both in the workplace and in the wider political world, and it's definitely not an easy job. So we need someone who's experienced, who's innovative, who's forward-looking, and above all, 100% committed to fighting for every single member and making sure we win for them at every possible opportunity. Howard Beckett is that person, and I tell you, he's got just the right credentials. He's been an active trade unionist and socialist all his life. He supported and fought for workers in struggle wherever they are, both in the UK and abroad. He battles against injustice and inequality wherever it raises its ugly head. And he's been a really effective representative for Unite on Labour's NEC. Justice and inequality wherever it raises its ugly head. Howard's also got significant industrial experience. He's led countless disputes with members across many different sectors, and he's won. He's an assistant general secretary. He's run one of our largest regions as regional secretary, and he also heads up two really important sectors, the chemicals, pharmaceuticals and textile sector, and the ever-expanding services sector, which includes hospitality and leisure, as well as having overall responsibility for our young members. And Howard's also currently leading Unite's incredible campaign to stop fire and rehire, which is giving so many members the confidence to fight back. But of course, leading a huge and important union with a multi-million-pound turnover, over 1 million members and hundreds of staff and officers across 10 regions needs more than just industrial experience. Howard heads up our legal and political teams, both nationally and regionally. And following the very sad loss of Ed Sapisky, our finance director, Howard's taken responsibility for Unite's finances for the time being. These are all complex and hugely important roles, requiring skills that very few are qualified for or understand, but Howard has delivered superbly on all of them. But I have to say that although Howard's got a proven track record on all of these things, it's his passion and his vision for Unite that inspires me most. His vision for a modern, forward-looking, innovative, member-led union that always puts members first, whoever and wherever they may be. For a fighting back organising union that's going to take on ruthless employers and that's going to fight for our members and protect them from the inevitable attacks on terms and conditions as we face one of the most difficult periods in our history, not just post-COVID, but post-Brexit too. And for a union that can hold its own in the political arena, holding politicians to account and fighting for the policies to create a fairer and more equal society for our members and their families in every nation and every community. But look, we've got some fantastic speakers tonight, and then we're going to hear from Howard himself. So I'm going to stop now so we can hear from our first speaker. He was a convener at Waterford Crystal. He was the first chair of Unite's executive committee post-merger and subsequently regional secretary of Ireland. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce the all-round legend that is Jimmy Kelly. Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, and thanks, Jennie, for that introduction. Good evening, everybody, and greetings from Ireland. What a great speech to have kicked off tonight's event, a passionate speech, as Jennie said, from Howard. I think it'll be a speech that defines the campaign, in fact. I see this as an exciting opportunity for all of us. An opportunity, a fantastic opportunity to have a General Secretary who's committed to giving control of the union to the members. Doesn't sound very revolutionary, does it? Imagine you're controlled by members, not controlled by any cliques or cliques. This is what voting for Howard Beckett means. I'm really impressed also with the people gathered around Howard's campaign, even to date. Women and men who in themselves I see as clearly the future of our union. The island of Ireland that I speak from here has priorities for workers, much like other regions and nations, right across Ireland, north, south, east and west, tackling the disgraceful low pay, defending workers' rights that are constantly under attack by bosses and government, the lack of proper housing, a health service in need of a massive investment. And as I say, that's north and south, more and more public services being contracted out, and our versions of what Howard has been highlighting and fighting against recently, fire and rehire. We have hospital cleaners here who are being contracted out to the lowest bidder every year. Their terms and conditions then has to fit in with the low bid that's put in by the newest contract that controls the hospital cleaning. Our ambulance drivers in Unite working every hour around the clock to look after people that have been infected with the COVID-19 coronavirus. The changes in the world of work that our union still has to come to terms with. And I know Howard is absolutely on the page of getting on top of that world of work with, you know, fighting against the sort of contracting out and the bogus self-employment that's rampant throughout society. Our community members here fighting against direct provision, a fancy name for prison for our refugees here in Ireland. The fighting against the racism that's creeping into every aspect of society, defending people against that sort of racism, and all the changes that are going to come about because of the COVID-19 coronavirus. Can I conclude by saying that the Irish revolutionary socialist James Connolly, he once pointed out that the only true prophets are those who carve out the future. We're now part of a campaign for Howard Beckett as General Secretary. We can be confident that we are carving out that better future for our youth, for Unite members. We will stand proud here in Ireland in support of Howard Beckett for General Secretary. Thank you.
Wow, that was absolutely tremendous, Jimmy. Thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant. And just to let everyone know who's watching, it's our website's now live, so please do check it out. It's got everything you need, from information on how to nominate, the pledges that Howard has made so far, downloadable posters, and everything you ever wanted to know about Howard, but you were too afraid to ask. It even gives away his age, actually. It also has pages for events and for you to ask Howard to speak at your local event or hustings. So the address is becketforunite.co.uk. That's becketforunite.co.uk. So make sure you click on there to get all of the resources and information that you need. So moving on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Jay Robinson, who's a disabled activist from Birmingham, who's chair of a large Unite community branch, as well as sitting on the area activist committee. Jay has been active in many campaigns, and she exemplifies exactly what Unite community is all about and why it's so important to our organisation. So Jay, welcome, and over to you.
You're on mute, Jay.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Jennie. An introduction that I'm not sure I deserve, but I'll take it. Thanks very much for inviting me to speak tonight. It's getting one back, I suppose, for me dragging Howard to speak on our food poverty live stream, which he did brilliant at. As community members in Birmingham and no doubt elsewhere in the country, we are eager to establish ourselves as a growing, important sector of Unite, and even earn our places upon elected regional committees and even the NEC of Unite the Union itself. The UK has some of the most restrictive trade union laws in Europe, and with that, when people go on strike, is often accompanied by threats to jobs and livelihoods of those people who are on strike. And because we're community members, we don't care, because that doesn't really apply. Because more often than not, we're not employed by the organisations that we're picketing and campaigning against. I mean, we see it this way. We don't find ourselves in a fight anymore. With this Tory government, we're not in a fight. We're not in a fight against injustice and against jobs. We're actually in a war. And we're in a war against mass unemployment. We're in a war on workers. We're in a war on wages. We're in a war on decent living standards. And we're in a war against poverty. We're in a war against each man, woman, and child already in this country and in the future. And that's what we've got to fight for. That's what we fight for now in Unite Community and Unite the Union. And that's where Howard has taken us here in Birmingham, because he stood on those lines with us. He stood with us when we were on the stalls campaigning several times a week. He stood with us and he did a brilliant job. Whoever the other fella was previous, I don't know, I never saw him. I can't often meet his name. I think he was called Coin something. Frank or Bozo. I don't know. I shouldn't be so disrespectful. But we never saw him. We never met him. We didn't even know he existed. But when Howard came down to Birmingham, we certainly did know he existed, because he was working right there with us. We need more unity. This is what we've found, is often the unions in our city tend to be, it's us against that union or that union. But as a Unite community, we tend to be able to work with them all, because we're seen as sort of outside the normal union spectrum, which is quite good, because we can get in there and fight against lots of things. But we need a leader first and foremost. To quote a guy I read this morning called Graham Calvin, I don't know if he'll be on the live stream, but I hope he is, because I'm nicking your quote. We need somebody to fill the big lad's boots. And that man, in my opinion, is Howard Beckett, because he will fight for the workers. He won't just talk about fighting for the workers and do nice television programs. He will fight for them on the picket lines, and he'll fight for them and stand for them side by side. He increased the payouts that they get on the daily rate for strike funds. And when others shied away in Birmingham for the bin workers strike, I mean, I was a member of Momentum, but they won't come out with us. We had to do it ourselves. Then he's the best. Fire and rehire. We've got to sound that. We've got to counter out facts. We need a moderniser who will take on the establishment and bring about change. Change now, change for the future, and let's change this government quickly, please. Howard Beckett, you're the man.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, Jay. Thank you. And I think Howard might achieve some of those things a lot more easily, perhaps, than some of the other ones. But we're all trying to change the government and doing it collectively. So thanks very much, Jay. That was just fantastic. And again, demonstrating how important United Community is to all of us. Just another little ad, if you like, to say don't forget to follow Howard on Facebook and Twitter. He's at Beckett Unite. And also to follow our campaign accounts at Beckett for Unite. So fairly straightforward and easy to remember, at Beckett Unite and at Beckett for Unite. So to go over to our next speaker, we're now going to hear from Cliff Bowen. Cliff represents the chemicals, pharmaceuticals, processed textiles and glass sector on Unite's Executive Council. And he's also Unite convener at INEOS in Grangemouth. So he certainly knows all about fighting back. So Cliff, it's great to see you here, and over to you.
Thanks very much, Jennie. A great speech there from previous colleagues. Howard's my AGS. As Jennie says, I'm the Executive Council member for Chemicals, Pharmaceuticals, Processed Textiles and Glass, which is the longest strap line within any union movement in the world, I think. At the moment, our sector is under attacks from all angles. We have decarbonisation, we have issues around about free ports, we have the green agenda, net zero economy, all of these things. And Howard is all over all of these issues at the moment. He is doing a ton of work. I mean, he must be the busiest man in the whole movement, I think. He, as Jennie alluded to earlier, but he's always got time to listen to the members. And in particular in our sector at the moment, we just are under attack all over the place. If I take decarbonisation and the green economy, you know, we have calls for, you know, the shutting down of our industry, left, right and centre. But we need it to be, these things are all very well and good, but they need to be done in a just way, and we need a just transition to greener jobs. And Howard's at the forefront of that stuff. I mean, these are communities that are based around about these big workplaces, you know, refineries, chemical plants, and we can't just shut down these workplaces at the cost of social cohesion and the families and working families, and you know, these refineries, you know, the big apprenticeships, employers and stuff like that. And Howard knows all about these issues. And he's fighting the fight for everybody in that regard. You know, we keep hearing about green jobs within our sector, you know, but people, I mean, I've yet to see these green jobs. They just never seem to materialise. You know, there's no adverts in papers for them. These kids, your kids, my kids, your grandkids, your neighbours' kids, you know, what skills are they going to need for these jobs? And this is massive, this, for every sector of the union. And Howard's leading the way in this, and he's fighting the fight. And it's incredible to see. But what I particularly like about Howard is, it's not always just about Howard Beckett. You know, he gives a voice and he gives a platform to others and to lay members within our movement. You know, if I take the Freeport issue, for example, Freeports is a massive issue for every sector of the union. And one of our lay members, a guy called Paul Peacock, a fantastic colleague, great activist, he came to me with that, and I went to Howard with it. And as we were discussing Freeports, it became Howard, you know, the penny dropped with Howard. This was massive. You know, he gave Paul this voice, he gave him this platform to speak at many, many different events. And all of a sudden, Freeports is on the agenda, not just for Unite the Union, but for the Labour movement as well. Because the Labour Party were nowhere with this stuff. And Howard's held up to account, not just on Freeports, but everything, as you'll know. You'll see him in the press day in, day out. But Freeports in particular, just an attack on workers' rights and the ability to be collectively bargain, a huge, huge issue. And he gave that, he magnified that issue, and it's right across the movement now. Fantastic work that's been done in that sector. But it's no, you know, it's not just about that. You know, Howard gets it. You know, the union needs to move forward. You know, it needs to change. The world, the work is changing. You know, lifelong learning, whether it be mental health, all of these issues. For every sector of the union, you need to be all over this stuff. And Howard knows this stuff. You know, he talks to it, and he talks powerfully, and he listens. He listens well to these issues that we have. You know, we talk about the pandemic that we're going through at the moment. you know, you get into the issue of the hidden pandemic around about mental health, and Howard's leading the way in this stuff. And I know that my colleagues in Bassa, who've had a hard time throughout their dispute, Howard's been there side by side with them, you know, and we've spoke about it at length about the mental health of, you know, not just our members, but our reps and our senior reps, I mean, our reps at work sites, as well as the officer pool, and as well as everybody that works for the union. It's been a tough time for everybody. But moving forward, we need to, mental health is going to be huge. The hidden pandemic we talk about, and Howard's all over that stuff. And he's actually, I raised at the executive council with him, and we're going to take that forward and form some kind of working group on that. Just a massive issue. But once again, you know, a man with such a vast portfolio, but getting into the minutiae, the detail, that kind of stuff, and listening, always listening. Right across every sector of the union, like I say, it's going to affect everybody. So for me, you know, we need someone as a GS who's not going to be scared to speak out. And I think we all know who that person is. He's a fantastic colleague. He just speaks out without fear or favour. And he's always there, always at the end of the phone, always takes your calls. So for me, vote Howard Beckett for General Secretary. There is no other choice.
Brilliant. Absolutely spot on, Cliff. Absolutely spot on. And just to remind everyone, obviously nominations are really important. Branch nomination meetings must be held between the 6th of May and the 7th of June. So we've put together a step-by-step guide to nominating Howard, and the link is becketforunite.co.uk/nomination. That's becketforunite.co.uk/nomination. Tells you everything that you need to know about how you get your branch to nominate Howard. Okay, so moving on quickly, our next speaker is Farheen Ahmed. Farheen knows only too well the problems that are faced by young members today, because she's worked on 0 hours contracts and in the very precarious retail sector. She's a great organiser, and she's now a caseworker working directly with migrants and other people facing serious difficulties. So Farheen, a very warm welcome to you today.
Hi, and thank you for that introduction. Very kind. So yeah, I'm a young worker at the moment, caseworker in Birmingham, and I'm really excited to be here at this launch for Howard. So it's a crucial time, as everyone has said, for the labour movement and for you know, across the country. COVID has laid bare and sometimes worsened existing problems in the workplace and wider society, and we're continuing to see attacks on workers on multiple fronts. There's a use that we've seen, you know, of horrific fire and rehire policies, threats of increasing surveillance both in the workplace and when remote working, low pay and precarious contracts, just to name a few. And to fight back against all of these attacks, there's a need for Unite to be proactive, bringing workers together before there's a need for a dispute, providing ongoing material solidarity, and platforming those engaged in disputes. And that's why Howard as a candidate is going to be so important. He understands the need to engage with workers on the ground, to hear, directly respond to their concerns, and facilitating support from the union. We've seen his work already, as was said, with the Birmingham bin strikers, where Howard ensured that the union's resources were, you know, provided to the workers. And that's hugely reassuring to me as a young worker on a even right now. It shows this understanding that in order for workers to be able to be militant in achieving our goals when we're engaged in disputes, we've got to be able to access those resources. We've got to get the institutional support from the union to be able to win. Alongside all of this, like, incredible, you know, labour organising, Howard also seen, you know, the centrality of, you know, bringing in the collective actions of those movements on the streets, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's the climate strikers. We have to be able to work with those groups to fight against state violence, state surveillance, and for a just transition for the climate. And these are fights that I've seen Howard has given his wholehearted commitment and passion towards, and that's incredibly important for me to see as a young worker. I've worked a lot with, you know, climate activists as well, so that's incredibly important to me, and it's great to see Howard supporting those struggles. The labour movement, I think, has continued and is going to make strides, but we've got to be strategic as we move forward. We've got to have a focus on those better working conditions, an appreciation of the changing nature of the workplace, and how it's becoming even more exploitative with the use of platform and gig economy. Gig economy workers are just getting more exploited. And we've got to have that dedication to a more dynamic, diverse, and member-led union. and hopefully I think we can all say that Howard's going to be the one hopefully to take us forward. So yeah, let's rally and get him there. Thanks.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Farheen. Fantastic. Thank you very much for those comments. And I've just been told that we've got over 1,000 people watching us tonight, which is absolutely incredible. So you're all part of a brilliant movement, and it's dead exciting. And I've told you before about the website, beckettforunite.co.uk. If you do beckettforunite.co.uk/get involved, then you can get all the different resources, and you can, including Howard's pledges, and specifically the resource page is beckettforunite.co.uk/resources. So hopefully you'll all be signing up to all of these things, and you'll be getting plenty of resources and getting out there and doing the business and helping us get Howard elected. So next we're going to go over to Ireland to hear from Marie Casey. Marie is a healthcare worker in Ireland and a branch secretary, and she sits on the Irish executive. As well as the health risk and the area activist committee. So extremely important work that she's doing and sitting on some really important committees there. So Marie, welcome.
Hello. Thanks a million for inviting me to speak today. I'm absolutely honoured to be speaking tonight for the launch of Howard's campaign. As you said, Jenny, my name is Marie. I'm more than happy to vote for Howard and will be encouraging everyone I meet, either in branches or as singular members, to vote for Howard and nominate in their branches. Howard, for me, my branch will definitely nominate him, and he has huge expertise of leadership and experience that's clear to be seen, and he publicly criticises Keir Starmer, which for us here in Ireland is so admirable that somebody just has the guts to come out and say something that they really feel. And his seat on the NEC for Labour is invaluable. I love his non-centrist decisions. They're totally left decisions because of his criticism of Labour, and he's constantly fighting for the members, the right to protest, the fire and rehire actively taking place. And that speech we had at the very beginning there, if that wouldn't invigorate you to want to vote for Howard, I don't know what we need, because that is just so spirited and encouraging that our union is on a new way forward. So, I love hearing Howard say that we have a need for alternative media. We're talking about that here in Ireland for years. We even tried at one stage, it wasn't successful. But the fact that Howard, as our next General Secretary, will be investing in an alternative media is super. Your outspokenness on racism and defending the health sectors, calling for public housing, like I could just go on and on. Unite Now is on the way for a new beginning, I think. Your vision, talking about change in the way we do things. No other candidate, has mentioned the nations and their inclusion going forward in Unite. Howard has. And because of your decentralized approach, there'll be more diverse and inclusiveness for all members. It'll be a union, that on one hand seeks to operate across multiple jurisdictions, but on the other, us that are centrally organized around head office, we can't reach our potential. And we're not reaching our full potential. And you're the only person of the three candidates that has identified this need to reach out to the nations. And you've identified this as a basic systemic flaw. So that would be a main reason that I would want to push you, and for all the other reasons, Howard. You seem the way forward for a new union for us, new beginnings, change. So on that, I'm happy to finish. I think I might be waffling a little bit. Thank you.
You're never waffling, Marie. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And really important points as well about the nations. All too often, nations get forgotten, and quite often, organisations can be very London-centric. But it's really important that we're a union for everybody in our union, whichever nation, whichever region they sit in. That's vitally important. Now, our next speaker was going to be Gary Buchan, who is an executive council member for engineering, manufacturing, steel. And he works at Tata Steel, which is really important, but he's having some technical problems, which is a real pain, and he hasn't been able to get onto it. So I really hope that he is going to be able to join us soon, but if not, he's sending his very best wishes. But before we go to our next speaker, I just wanted to say something to you about the Crowdfunder. We've just launched a Crowdfunder for Howard's campaign. It's www.crowdfunder.co.uk/Beckett-for-unite. And I'm sure that's going to be put on your screens. It's only just launched, and we've already raised over £1,000, which is absolutely brilliant. This campaign is very much a grassroots member-led campaign. And so, the support of thousands of members is absolutely fantastic. And that's how we're going to continue, in particular with funding. We're not going to have any big donations from any big organisations. This is going to be very much a member-led campaign. So please do, if you can, and I know it's difficult for people, click on the link and chip in and donate just a few quid. That's absolutely fantastic. So in the absence of Gary, we're going to move to our last speaker before we hear from Howard, who is Daz Reynolds. He's the convener of the biggest branch in Wales, Airbus in Broughton. He's also the chair of his Regional Industrial Sector Committee, and he sits on the Aerospace and Shipbuilding National Industrial Sector Committee. So a hugely important sector, and they're facing significant problems at the moment, which really require a strong trade union. So it's great that Daz is their convener, and Daz, it's brilliant that you're here today. So over to you.
Thanks very much for that, Jennie. Thanks for that. I'm proud and privileged to be able to speak tonight for this campaign. It's absolutely vital we have a strong leader for our movement, someone who's not afraid to challenge organisations and the establishments going forward. We need a leader who's not, how can I say, not afraid to challenge the Labour Party or whether it be the Conservative government. We need somebody who will be there and will support us all the way through. Howard will do that. Howard's got a track record of doing that, whether he's done it in the past, whether he supported the bin strikes in Birmingham. He understands what members need. He understands what the vision is to go forward. He supports us through aviation, like you've just said before. In Wales, we've got big aviation supply chains. He understands what we need to have support going forward for that. It's absolutely difficult to where we are today. The world is changing. Unite needs to change and move with the times, whether it's digitalisation, hybrid working, artificial intelligence. They're just some examples. Unite can't fall behind. Howard has promised a modern trade union, and that's what we need, a modern trade union to take on whatever's going to come out of this pandemic, to support workplaces. We need somebody who's going to drive the changes and lead our union forward, support members out of the crisis. What we need people to do, who are looking into the meeting tonight, is go to your branch meetings, make sure the nominations are for Howard Beckett. What Howard's doing is he puts on social media, the team on social media, the platform shows you what to do. Go to your branch meetings, find out who you need to go, who you need to be. We need somebody who can lead forward, and like I've said before, modernise this trade union. We need to be modernised forward, whether it be the Amazons of this world taking these people on, because we need people in the union to go and get people in the union nowadays, because all the establishment want to do is soften us. Whether it be, I look at the other day, whether it be the BBC not mentioning Howard in the time, that tells you one thing, that the establishment are frightened of Howard Beckett. The establishment are frightened of Howard Beckett. It's quite clear. We don't want somebody who's got the same old rhetoric. We want somebody who's going to be able to speak out and have an answer for everything. like you said, Jenny, I've been involved with the union for many years. I hear the same old. And what we need is somebody who's going to be able to take, like I said, the establishment, that whether it be the challenge to Keir Starmer and the Labour, who are not supporting people, and take it to number 10 and take it to them. You need somebody who's got to be standing up to it. That man's Howard Beckett. I'm pleased, and it's a modern trade union. That's where we need to be. Whilst we've got a great history where we've been in the past, we need somebody who's going to take these people on. I'll just finish up really. I've got somebody in Howard Beckett who, one of my colleagues said earlier on, what you tend to find with certain people is they'll give you some advice and they don't follow it on. Before, I said they didn't expect Howard to follow it on with one of the issues they had. That's what he does. Through the issues I've had in our plant for the last few months, whether it be a text message or a phone call, Howard's there, he reaches out to the members. And that's what we need as the future General Secretary. So all I can say to everybody, go to your branch meetings, understand where you need to be, because we need somebody, and I won't swear because I got to rock it last time, but somebody to take, somebody to take the bastards on. And that's what we need with Howard Beckett. So get to your branch meetings, vote Howard in, and let's get a strong support for him going into this election. Thanks very much.
Brilliant, 100%, Daz. Absolutely fantastic. And I'll say it, Howard's not only afraid to take the bastards on, but he's taken them on time and again, and he's beaten them. So that's exactly the man that we need in charge of our union. So there's some absolutely brilliant endorsements that have come through from people in really important positions within our organisation. And when I say important positions, I'm talking about people who are leading as lay members. That is absolutely the most important thing about our organisation is our members and us listening to them, not telling them what they should be doing. It's a real shame. It looks as though, unfortunately, that Gary hasn't been able to join us. So now we're going to go straight to the man himself. He doesn't need any more introduction after all those fantastic endorsements from everybody. So Howard, it's brilliant to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and thank
You're
you everyone for. I don't think I am. It should be off. Can you hear me, Jenny?
Yeah.
You can hear me great. Listen, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for the contributions. I think you said, Jenny, at one stage that we should judge the campaigns by those who are involved in it, or maybe Jimmy said that we should, and look at the Zoom. The word is overused at times, isn't it, within the union movement? The adjective about how you feel whenever you get the support from people. Like, you certainly, in my position, feel humble, but you also feel somewhat petrified, because you really do need to stand up and represent the type of people who are on this Zoom here and now. You know, yourself, Jenny, a legend of the trade union movement, and to have your backing and for you to be the campaign manager is, well, it's just incredible. And thank you very much for all that you've done. And obviously, you know, it's difficult to pick people out, but everyone knows my relationship with Jimmy Kelly, and for Jimmy to be speaking on behalf of this campaign is, well, it is humbling. And, you know, I remember meeting Jimmy all those years ago and being petrified at the thought of meeting a man of such gravitas, and here he is speaking on behalf of the campaign now as we're moving forward, and that speaks volumes for this campaign. If we are going to judge campaigns by the supporters, I have no doubt that the supporters of this campaign will be running on a vision, a positive vision of what the union can achieve for working people in society going forward. But Jenny, this is an extraordinary time as we're coming out of the second wave of COVID. We have seen perhaps over 150,000 deaths in the UK nations alone. We are seeing now the response of the Conservative government. We've seen with the COVID laws, the 77,000 people have now been prosecuted. There's been 135,000 complaints in England alone to the HSE about unsafe workplaces, and there's not been one single prosecution. And then in all of our nations, in the south of Ireland, in the UK nations, we are seeing a myriad of legislation that is all about removing civil rights and all about setting the programme for deregulation in work poverty. We see the insult at this moment in time of the offer to the NHS staff of 1%. And that is improved by a Labour Party who offer 2.1%. And that alone reflects the position that we find ourselves in, that we have to fight for working class people coming out of COVID. We have to find for ourselves the same spirit that people found in 1946, whenever they returned from the Second World War, and whenever debt then was substantially higher as a percentage of GDP than it is now. But they still built a welfare state, built the NHS, built 1 million council homes, and demanded that their children be having the right to go to third-tier education. And it's that narrative that we need now to own as a trade union movement. And we're not going to expect political parties to deliver those messages for us everywhere in all of our nations. I keep on referencing, Jennie, that the passage for our political parties now in the UK has a resonance with what happened in the south of Ireland. Two parties that came out of revolution that now find themselves in coalition with each other, two parties of the establishment, a Labour Party that has at various times propped them up, and no alternative for working people. But in our world, there is an alternative for working people, and it is called Unite. Our role in society right here and now has never been more important, and it's the reason why you will hear me saying in all of the Zoom events or all of the StreamYard events or all of the events that we hopefully have in person, that this is not the time for this union to be talking about moving itself back from involvement in certain arenas. It is not the time for us to talk in a narrative that says that we are too political, so we must be more industrial. It is not a narrative that talks about putting types of membership against each other, community membership against industrial membership. It is a narrative that should now say that Unite is big enough, powerful enough, influential enough in society to change society for working people. And whenever we work together as departments, whenever we work with education, industrial and political, that's whenever we find our champions of communities, our champions of the workplaces. That's whenever people go on the journey with Unite, from being a young activist through to being a representative, through to being an officer, through to being a representative in other arenas. That's whenever people have the confidence to talk for working class communities. And that's what we desperately need right here and now. And you referenced it, Jennie, this is not an election of a president, and nobody should see it as an election of a president. This is a moment in time for our union to use every resource that we have to punch our weight in society. It is a time for everyone to come together and everybody to say that they are the leaders for our union going forward. It is the reason as to why we are going to constantly through this campaign talk about modernising our trade union, talk about creating a YouTube television channel, talk about the fact that we will not be restricted by mainstream media, that we will get our message out to the wider society about the power of collectivism, that we will say to young people that it's the trade union movement that will change your lives and rid you of the shackles of debt, that we will say to workers who are in precarious work that it is the trade union movement that will stand up against those employers who are solely interested in the greed of profit and not interested in your lives or your welfare. It will be the trade union movement that will stand up for the most vulnerable, and it will be the trade union movement that demand that what people get coming out of COVID will be very different than what they had before COVID. And it is why we will present a campaign that does talk about the regions and the nations, a campaign that firmly believes that when the unions is successful in our regions and our nations, then we are successful as a class. It will be a campaign that refuses to ignore the fact that we are in a class struggle, that this isn't just a struggle about what happens in individual workplaces, that the reality of what is experienced in companies such as INEOS, the reality of public sector workers on a pay freeze, the reality of an offer to the NHS of 1% is because of the society that we live in. And until such time as we join all of those dots and understand that politics is around us and lives in our workplaces and our communities, that we will not be successful as a union movement. So we will recognise that class struggle that we have going forward. We will find our champions of the retired members who need to give the advice to our younger members. We will find our champions of younger members. We will find our women champions, and we will find our champions from the Black and ethnic minority communities, because that's what the union is all about, giving people a platform so as they can believe in how they themselves can influence their own lives going forward. And as I referenced, we will simply not allow this union to work in silos, but we will ensure that our union works together and that all of our resources are at the front end, where reps need to be supported and members need to be serviced. Jennie, in just the last couple of days, I've talked obviously at that Kill the Bill rally where our civil liberties are under attack, the very right of protest under attack, but also a piece of legislation that sends a clear message to the Black Lives Matter movement that the reality of institutional racism is dismissed by this government whenever the government says that if you deface a monument to a racist slave trader, that you could face 10 years in prison, and a piece of legislation that looks to criminalise the Romani, traveller and Gypsy communities. That's the type of society that we are fighting against. Yesterday, I talked on a platform in respect to social housing. Over 200,000 people in England alone who are still homeless. The reality of Section 21 evictions, as they are referred to, where a landlord does not even need to give a reason as to why a tenancy is coming to an end, but someone is made homeless because of the demand for extra profit. The reality of the fact that we have Labour councils in London with £1.7 billion of reserves, yet not doing anything to build council properties. This is the society that we have to change going forward, and we can change it going forward. We can change it if we believe in it. So Jennie, I'll finish by saying this. You start a campaign in my position wondering how difficult it's going to be, how stressful it's going to be. You get solidarity and confidence by those people who step forward to talk to you on your behalf. And then there comes a time whenever you simply find excitement at the prospect of being able to deliver a union that changes our movement, moves our movement to the left, and in doing so, changes society. And that's where we are at right here and now. We are at a place and a moment in time where this union can step forward and make such a contribution to society that we have systemic change that lasts for generations to come. So please, those who are watching, join the campaign.
Brilliant. Thank you, Howard. That's absolutely fantastic, as we all knew it would be. And I'll tell you what, you may be excited. How do you think we feel? We are all so fired up for this campaign. The fact we've got so many people involved, engaged, coming on and watching you, sending us messages, it's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So we've taken quite a lot of time. We haven't got an awful lot of time left, but we've had loads of questions coming in. We're going to try and cover all of them, but keep them coming. And anything that doesn't get picked up, we will reply to after the meeting. I'll try and rattle through them really, really quickly. And we were going to ask sort of everyone to chip in, but I think, Howard, we probably want to hear more from you as we've only got 10 minutes left. But if anyone else wants to chip in, that would be brilliant as well. So we've had a number of questions about process, how election works, how we reach out to involve more people in the election. So covering everything, we've had this from Vicky. He said, she said, you are the candidate that lay members and branches are clearly supporting, but what do we actually need to do to win this election? Well, that's a very, very important question.
Well, nominate is the first thing. The first thing people need to do to win this election is to have confidence and be involved. And the reason why we're finding ourselves in this platform tonight is because of the amount of registrations that we had for Zoom, where we simply could not do it because it very quickly got over 500. As you referenced, Jennie, 1,000 people watching. We have 5,000 now following us on Facebook. We've got over 1,600 who are signed up to assist in respect of the campaign. And please go on to those Facebook pages in order to be part of the campaign and to assist. But right here now, as people probably know, we need to be on the ballot paper. There's a target for the ballot paper of 174 branches. It's a high target, but let's smash through it. We'll be having more events, Jennie, as you know, to launch our manifestos, to give people pledges in respect of it. And we'll also be having an event whenever we smash through that branch threshold and we know that we're on the ballot. So right here now, my appeal to everybody would be, get into your branch, ask your branch when they're meeting to nominate, talk to as many people as possible who are in your branch, and make sure that the nomination is delivered for us.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And do keep watching, everyone, all the announcements that are going in the banners underneath the screen, because it's got all the various links for you to do that. We've had lots of questions on fire and rehire, including key questions from Michelle Hesler and Joanne Davis, who talk about strategy we'll need to win in terms of fighting after COVID. So we're obviously coming out of a crisis where many employers will take advantage of the situation and they're using it to attack members' terms and conditions. What will be your workplace organising strategy?
Well, more people need to be in the union. You need to be part of a collective. I referenced it on the speech, in the Kill the Bill speech, that my very clear message to everyone right now, Jennie, is to be part of organised labour so as you can withdraw your labour. Fire and hire is not a new phenomenon. It is just that it is new insofar as it has become such a pandemic for greedy bosses, seeing the opportunity at the moment of crisis, people who were forced into work. Last week I was down in third picket line with bin workers who were forced to work through COVID, were not provided with the necessary PPE, put themselves at risk, and coming out of it, what did they get? Their terms and conditions slashed, £4,000 to be lost. It's happening in every sector, in every nation. It's happening in Heartlands Hospital in Birmingham, for example, with a unison dispute, but it happened in British Airways. SPS Technology defeated it in Leicester only recently. So we can defeat it. And Jennie, this was going back to the very first Birmingham Midlands dispute. That was fire and rehire. Yeah. That was our members who were being dismissed, losing up to £5,000 a person. And the challenge for us was to keep them on the bins so as the industrial dispute remained alive. So we gave them as a union a guarantee that we would keep their wages for a period of 6 months when the employer was looking to dismiss them, so as they could stay on the back of the bins and then the dispute could stay active. And that's what we have to do at the moment. We need people to understand that these arbitrary dates that the employer puts in the sand, these arbitrary dates where they say sign a new contract, is just that. It doesn't finish your industrial dispute. Get in a union, be part of organised labour so as you can withdraw your labour.
Absolutely spot on. And that's something we're going to be coming back to over and over again. So we've had quite a lot of questions about why you want to be the General Secretary, what motivates you to stand, etc. So come on, why do you want to be our next General Secretary, Howard?
Well, I can assure you it's not for selfish reasons, Jennie. You do this. Our movement is about moving in a direction of the left, and it's not about individuals. But obviously, you find whenever you're looking around within a union, you find that there are differences between you individually. You find that you have a different vision for the union. I reject, as people know, wholeheartedly this narrative that says that the union should be one thing and not another thing. The union can be everything. I reject the narrative that says that the union is too political. There can be an argument about it being too Westminster-centric, because obviously we need to move our resources and our narrative out to the nations and out to the regions. But the idea that politics isn't part of trade unionism was rejected over 120 years ago. And then you look at yourself as a candidate and you wonder if you can provide a better platform to find champions of our industries and our communities. Can you reach out to people? Can you affect change? Can you give people the confidence for that? Do you surround yourself with people who are of a standard to help build our union for the next 5 years, to make sure that we play our role in society? Do you have the experience of running different departments? Do you have the experience of running a region? I think the experience that I had in the West Midlands of running the West Midlands is probably the reason why I feel able to put my name forward as the General Secretary. If I hadn't been a Regional Secretary, I don't think I would have been in a position to say that I would understand the role of a General Secretary. And then people will have to make up their mind. They will have to decide who is best placed to make sure that the services that we need are given to our reps and our officers. Who is best placed to modernise this union? Who would you want to go in front of a politician if they were arguing for workers' rights? Who would you want to go in front of a boss if we were involved in the worst of disputes? And people will have to make up their mind about that. But obviously, on the basis that I've decided to put my name forward, I do feel that I'm best placed to deliver that on behalf of the union.
Absolutely spot on, and the rest, Howard. And let's be honest, it wasn't about you jumping up and down with your hand up saying, oh, please, 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 I want the job. It was about so many people lobbying you who realised that you would be absolutely the best person to lead our union forward, and that you've got the vision for it. So that's a bit of an unfair question to ask you, really. We probably should have been asking us. We've been saying that throughout this anyway, so that's absolutely brilliant. Now for a slight change of subject, and, you know, I know you're not afraid to deal with the more difficult and sticky questions. There's been a lot of negative press about Unite and you personally over the last few weeks, and we all expect it to continue throughout the campaign. We know that the establishment doesn't want you. Of any of the candidates, you're the one they want to get rid of. So we know you're going to be under attack. But how does it feel when you see all those negative things written about you in the press and negative things that are complete lies?
Well, it's not nice. It's not nice to have your name smeared in the press. It's not nice to read lies. But the truth in respect of it, Jennie, is that we need to drown it out with positivity going forward. There is a reason as to why the media is attacking this particular campaign, and it is because all of us want to see establishment change. All of us want the union to play its role in society, as Daz referenced. All of us want and need now to be able to talk about industry, supply chains, about government intervention, about challenging that there is a new and a different way. And all of us need people who are prepared to say that coming out of COVID, there is no chance that people should get the same as they had before COVID. COVID didn't create the inequalities, but it certainly has exposed those inequalities. So yes, Jennie, it's not nice. There is lies out there, obviously. You make your decision as to whether or not you want to give those lies more airtime by dealing with them, or whether or not you want to ignore them. And right here and now, I've made the decision, we've made the decision that this is a campaign about positivity. It's a campaign about what we can achieve. And my message to everybody, for everybody who's supporting the campaign, is just drown out that negative nonsense with positive messages about what we can achieve in society if we come together.
Absolutely, 100%. And one of the most ridiculous ones was us being criticised for spending lots of money on paying trade union rates and employing workers who are in a collective trade union to build our brilliant new hotel and conference centre, which is the obvious thing. And surprise, surprise, it costs more money if you don't use cheap, exploited labour. So absolutely spot on there, Howard. We've had quite a few questions about the Labour Party, and one of those questions, you said very rightly earlier on that politics matters, and as I know more than anyone else, I have to say the Labour Party has clearly changed direction in the last year. So how will you handle the Labour Party as General Secretary? And we've had other sort of associated questions about affiliation and so on as well.
Well, you know, I suppose to some extent I handle them a bit like you would handle a bad employer at the moment, the way that they're conducting themselves. But listen, I think you need to start on the premise, we all need to start on the premise that it is up to politicians to show their relevance to trade union members, not the other way around. Politicians have to daily, weekly, monthly, yearly show that they are speaking on behalf of working people, show that they understand what's going on in our workplaces, in our communities, in our lives. They have to present a vision that says to us that the next generation will have a better life than the previous generation. They have to present a vision that understands about the fact that we are in a class war, and understands that they have to speak for our class in order to get systemic change in society. They have to understand that things that are happening around racism are institutionalized. How can anybody even argue that institutionalized racism doesn't exist whenever you see a government passing a piece of legislation to protect monuments as against protecting the rights of people to protest? So politicians need to show their relevance to Unite members. They need to be able to show their relevance to people like Daz and Cliff, who are in the workplaces, desperate to hear about policies that talk to supply chains, talking about intervention to make sure that they've got secure work going forward, desperate to hear about research and development being kept in the UK and not going to outside countries, because that's really where the jobs stay. They need to show that they understand these issues. They then need to talk for Jay and the communities as to what are they going to do so as people aren't just forgotten and left behind on benefits, but actually have a future, and a future that all of us are prepared to speak for. And if Labour politicians do not show their relevance to that, then they become precisely the opposite of that. They simply become irrelevant. But what people should understand is that it doesn't matter if Labour politicians are relevant or irrelevant. The union will step forward in that vacuum. It will be the union that will educate people. It will be the union that will explain as to why you fall into dispute is because of the type of society that we live in. It'll be the union that will find those champions that we've referred to throughout this Zoom If the Labour Party is no longer speaking for our members, then it doesn't matter. We'll step forward and speak for our members.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay, and we've had another question, which is this. It's so good that your campaign has got representatives from all the regions, every equality strand, young members, retired members. Is this how you're going to build the union?
Well, yes, it's the short answer to that. Listen, all of these things will go through everything that we do in respect of organising, in respect of education, in respect of ongoing training for our staff and our officers, in respect of how we bring everybody together from the union. These issues about equality will run through everything. Once again, we cannot just have equality as a separate department that fits in every now and again in regard to isolated matters. Equality should run through everything we do. Same with anti-racism. It should run through absolutely everything that we do as an organisation, be constantly at the forefront of our minds. But the truth of it is, yes, Jennie, all that this is about is making platforms to find those people who want to go on that journey with us, who understand that there's something wrong in their own workplace, understand that there's something wrong in their own community, and they want to fix it. How can they fix it? By being part of a collective, by being part of a trade union. And it's for us then to make sure that they have that platform and that confidence, so as we see them go on that journey from being a person who knows what's wrong, to being an activist, to being a rep in the workplace, to being an officer, to being a representative in the wider communities. That's what it's all about. And trade unionism is the only answer for society's ills.
Well, that's absolutely perfect answer, Howard. And I think that's a perfect question for us to end on. Absolutely brilliant. And I know that everyone who's watching this, the hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people who are watching this, are going to be as inspired and as motivated as I am. So just a reminder to all of you, get involved, sign up to the campaign, get in touch with your branch, check out our website so you can see how you can get your branch to nominate. And by the way, community members can nominate, and they can, their branches can nominate, and they can vote as well. Everyone can vote other than people who are classed as ordinary retired members, but retired members plus, and everybody else gets a vote. So make sure you do that, spread the word, use the social media channels, and keep tuning into future events, because we're going to have a lot more, particularly as Howard starts to roll out all the pledges from his manifesto, and I can't wait to see that and can't wait for it to be shared with all of us. So thank you, Howard. Thank you to all of our speakers, and thank you to all of you, our members, who are watching this and who've taken part in it today. You're the ones who are going to make sure that we get Howard Beckett elected as our General Secretary, and I can't wait for that day. Thank you, everyone, and good night.